Chapter 8. Now another incredible delay was caused as Mr. Morley decided to see if he could find a store open in Bridgeport and buy a sleeping bag or at least a canvas cover or tarpaulin of some kind for tonight's sleep at 9,000 feet, and judging from last night's sleep at 4,000, it was bound to be pretty cold. Meanwhile, Jaffe and I waited, sitting in the now hot sun of 10 a.m. on the grass of the school, watching occasional laconic traffic pass by on the not busy highway, and watching to see the fortunes of young Indian hitchhiker pointed north. We discussed him warmly. That's what I like, hitchhiking around, feeling free. Imagine though, being an Indian and doing all that. Damn it, Smith, let's go talk to him and wish him luck. The Indian wasn't very talkative, but not unfriendly, and told us he'd been making pretty slow time on 395. We wished him luck. Meanwhile, in the very tiny town, Morley was nowhere to be seen. What's he doing? Waking up some proprietor in his bed back there? Finally, Morley came back and said there was nothing available, and the only thing to do was to borrow a couple of blankets at the lake lodge. We got in the car, went back down the highway a few hundred yards, and turned south toward the glittering trackless snows high in the blue air. We drove along beautiful twin lakes and came to the lake lodge, which was a big white frame house inn. Morley went in and deposited $5 for the use of 2 blankets for one night. A woman was standing in the doorway, arms akimbo. Dogs barked. The road was dusty, a dirt road, but the lake was cereally and pure. In it, the reflections of the cliffs and foothills showed perfectly. But the road was being repaired, and we could see yellow dust boiling up ahead, where we'd have to walk along the lake road a while before cutting across a creek at the end of the lake and up through underbrush and up the beginning of the trail. We parked the car and got all our gear out and arranged it in the warm sun. Jaffe put things in my knapsack and told me I had to carry it or jump in the lake. He was being very serious and leaderly, and it pleased me for more than anything else. Then, with the same boyish gravity, he went over to the dust of the road with the pickaxe and drew a big circle and began drawing things in the circle. What's that? I'm doing a magic mandala that'll not only help us on our climb, but after a few more marks and chants, I'll be able to predict the future from it. What's a mandala? They're the Buddhist designs that are always circles filled with things, the circle representing the void and the thing's illusion, see? You sometimes see mandalas painted over a bodhisattva's head and can tell his history from studying it, Tibetan in origin. I had on the tennis sneakers and now whipped out my mountain climbing cap for the day, which Jaffe had consigned to me, which was a little black French beret, which I put on at a jaunty angle and hitched the knapsack, and I was ready to go. In the sneakers and the beret, I felt more like a bohemian painter than a mountain climber, but Jaffe had on his fine big boots and his little green Swiss cap with feather, and looked elfin but rugged. I see the picture of him alone in the mountains in that outfit, the vision. It's pure morning in the high dry Sierras. Far off clean firs can be seen shadowing the sides of rocky hills. Further yet, snow-capped pinpoints, near the big bushy forms of pines, and there's Jaffe, in his little cap, with a big rucksack on his back, clomping along, but with a flower in his left hand, which is hooked to the strap of the rucksack at his breast. Grass grows out between crowded rocks and boulders. Distant sweeps of scree can be seen making gashes down the sides of morning. His eyes shine with joy. He's on his way. His heroes are John Muir and Han Shan and Shite and Li Po and John Burroughs and Paul Bunyan and Kropotkin. He's small and has a funny kind of belly coming out as he strides, but it's not because his belly is big. It's because his spine curves a bit. But that's offset by the vigorous long steps he takes. Actually, the long steps of a tall man, as I found out following him up trail, and his chest is deep and shoulders broad. God dang it, Jaffe, I feel great this morning, I said as we locked the car and all three of us started swinging down the lake road with our packs, straggling a bit, occupying side and center and the other side of the road like straggling infantrymen. Isn't this a hell of a lot greater than the place? Getting drunk in there on a fresh Saturday morning like this, all bleary and sick, and here we are by the fresh pure lake walking along in this good air. By God, it's a haiku in itself. Comparisons are odious, Smith, he sent sailing back to me, quoting Cervantes and making a Zen Buddhist observation to boot. It don't make a damn freaking difference whether you're in the place or hiking up Matterhorn. It's all the same old void, boy. And I mused about that and realized he was right. Comparisons are odious. It's all the same. But it sure felt great, and suddenly I realized this, in spite of my swollen foot veins, would do me a lot of good and get me away from drinking and maybe make me appreciate perhaps a whole new way of living. JP, I'm glad I met you. I'm gonna learn all about how to pack rucksacks and what to do and hide in these mountains when I'm sick of civilization. In fact, I'm grateful I met you. Well, Smith, I'm grateful I met you too. Learning about how to write spontaneously and all that, that's nothing. To me, it's a lot. Let's go, boys. A little faster. We ain't got no time to waste. By and by, we reached the boiling yellow dust where caterpillars were churning around and great big fat sweaty operators who didn't even look at us were swearing and cussing on the job. For them to climb a mountain, you'd have to pay them double time and quadruple time today, Saturday. JP and I laughed to think of it. I felt a little embarrassed with my silly beret, but the cat operators didn't even look, and soon we left them behind and were approaching the final little store lodge at the foot of the trail. It was a log cabin, set right on the end of the lake, and it was enclosed in a V of pretty big foothills. Here we stopped and rested a while on the steps. We'd hiked approximately 4 miles, but on flat, good road, and went in and bought candy and crackers and cokes and stuff. Then suddenly Morley, who'd not been silent on the 4 mile hike, and looked funny in his own outfit, which was that immense packboard with hair matchers and all, deflated now, and no hat at all, so that he just looked like he does in the library, but with big floppy pants of some kind. Morley suddenly remembered he'd forgotten to drain the crankcase. So he forgot to drain the crankcase, I said, noticing their consternation and not knowing much about cars. So he forgot to drain the drink base. No, this means that if it gets below freezing tonight, down here the goddamn radiator explodes and we can't drive back home and have to walk 12 miles to Bridgeport and get all hung up. Well, maybe it won't be so cold tonight. Can't take a chance, said Morley, and by that time I was pretty mad at him for finding more ways than he could figure to forget, foul up, disturb, delay, and make go round in circles this relatively simple hiking trip we'd undertaken. What are you gonna do? What are we gonna do? Walk back 4 miles? Only thing to do. I'll walk back alone. Drain the crankcase, walk back, and follow you up the trail and meet you tonight at the camp. And I'll light a big bonfire, said JP, and you'll see the glow and just yodel and we'll direct you in it. That's simple. But you've got to step on it to make it by nightfall at the camp. I will. I'll start back right now. But then I felt sorry about poor old hapless funny Henry and said, hell, you mean you're not going to climb with us today? The hell with the crankcase. Come on with us. It costs too much money if that thing froze tonight, Smith. No, I think I better go back. I've got plenty of nice thoughts to keep me acquainted with probably what you two will be talking about all day. Hell, I'll just start back right now. Be sure not to roar at bees and don't hurt the cur, and if the tennis party comes on with everybody shirtless, don't make eyes at the searchlight or the sun will kick a girl's ass right back at you. Cats and all and boxes of fruit and oranges thrown in. And some such statement, with no ado or ceremony, there he went down the road with just a little hand wave, muttering and talking on to himself. So we had to yell, "Well, so long, Henry, hurry up!" And he didn't answer, but just walked off shrugging. You know, I said, I think it doesn't make any difference to him anyway. He's just satisfied to wander around and forget things, and pat his belly and look at things as they are, sort of like a chuangse. And JP and I had a good laugh, watching forlorn Henry swaggering down all that road we'd only just negotiated alone and mad. Well, here we go, said JP. When I get tired of this big rucksack, we'll swap. I'm ready now. Man, come on, give it to me now. I feel like carrying something heavy. You don't realize how good I feel, man. Come on. So we swapped packs and started off. Both of us were feeling fine and were talking a blue streak about anything. Literature, the mountains, girls, princess, the poets, Japan, our past adventures in life. And I suddenly realized it was kind of a blessing in disguise Morley had forgotten to drain the crankcase. Otherwise, JP wouldn't have gotten a word edgewise all the blessed day, and now I had a chance to hear his ideas. In the way he did things, hiking, he reminded me of Mike, my boyhood chum, who also loved to lead the way. Real grave like Buck Jones, eyes to the distant horizons like Natty Bumppo, cautioning me about snapping twigs, or it's too deep here, let's go down the creek a ways to ford it, or there'll be mud in that low bottom, we better skirt around, and dead serious and glad. I saw all JP's boyhood in those eastern Oregon forests, the way he went about it. He walked like he talked. From behind I could see his toes pointed slightly inward, the way mine do, instead of out. But when it came time to climb, he pointed his toys out, like Chaplin, to make it kind of easier flat path as he trudged. We went across a kind of muddy river bottom through dense undergrowth and a few willow trees and came out on the other side, a little wet, and started up the trail, which was clearly marked and named and had been recently repaired by trail crews. But as we hit parts where a rock had rolled on the trail, he took great precaution to throw the rock off, saying, "I used to work on trail crews. I can't see a trail all meddlesome like that, Smith." As we climbed, the lake began to appear below us, and suddenly in its clear blue pool, we could see the deep holes where the lake had its springs, like black wells, and we could see schools of fish skitter. "Oh, this is like an early morning in China, and I'm 5 years old and beginningless time," I sang out and felt like sitting by the trail and whipping out my little notebook and writing sketches about it. "Look over there," sang Jaffe. "Yellow aspens. Just put me in the mind of a haiku, talking about the literary life, the yellow aspens. Walking in this country, you could understand the perfect gems of haikus the Oriental poets had written, never getting drunk in the mountains or anything, but just going along as fresh as children, writing down what they saw without literary devices or fancinesses of expression. We made up haikus as we climbed, winding up and up now on the slopes of brush. "Rocks on the side of the cliff," I said. "Why don't they tumble down?" "Maybe that's a haiku. Maybe not. It might be a little too complicated," said Jaffe. "A real haiku's got to be as simple as porridge, and yet make you see the real thing. Like the greatest haiku of them all probably is the one that goes, 'The sparrow hops along the veranda with wet feet,' by Shiki. You see the wet footprints like a vision in your mind, and yet in those few words, you also see all the rain that's been falling that day and almost smell the wet pine needles. Let's have another. I'll make up one of my own this time. Let's see. Lake below, the black holes the wells make." "No, that's not a haiku, goddammit. You never can be too careful about haiku. How about making them up real fast as you go along, spontaneously?" "Look here," he cried. "Mountain lupine. See the delicate blue color those little flowers have? And there's some California red poppy over there. The whole meadow is just powdered with color. Up there, by the way, is genuine California white pine. You never see them much anymore. You sure know a lot about birds and trees and stuff. I've studied it all my life." Then also, as we went on climbing, we began getting more casual and making funnier, sillier talk, and pretty soon we got to a bend in the trail where it was suddenly glady and dark, with shade and tremendous cataracting stream was bashing and frothing over scummy rocks and tumbling on down. And over the stream was a perfect bridge formed by a fallen snag. We got on it and lay belly down and dunked our heads down, hair wet, and drank deep as the water splashed in our faces, like sticking your head by the jet of a dam. I lay there a good long minute, enjoying the sudden coolness. "This is like an advertisement for Rainier Ale," yelled Jaffe. "Let's sit a while and enjoy it." "Boy, you don't know how far we got to go yet." "Well, I'm not tired." "Well, you'll be, Tiger."